Welcome to the third episode of the Chamberlain podcast. My name is Dane, and this is the official podcast of the Chamberlain Movember Challenge. My co-host for this episode is the one and only Mark Kelly. Mark and I will be having a chat with Brett Connellan, a young surfer who survived a shark attack. Brett's story is truly inspirational. He talks to us about the physical and mental struggles he faced during his recovery and ultimately getting back on the board. Ladies and gentlemen, this is Brett Connellan. So for the first time, we have a guest on the podcast that's not linked to our Movember campaign.
Very exciting. He's renowned in the local surfing community and even more recently in the Australia-wide surfing community. He is a podcaster. He is an athlete, and more importantly, he is my friend, Brett Connellan, and he has a very inspirational story that has changed the trajectory of his life, and he's using that to change the trajectory of other people's lives. Brett, welcome to the show.
Thank you. Pleasure to be here. Nice to be known as a friend as well.
Yeah.
Stoked.
To start us off, we might get you to do a quick intro on who you are and where you've come from.
Okay. Well, I suppose you already started with my name. Grew up in a little town, Kiama, which is obviously where Mark's from as well. I've always been a surfer, surfed my whole life, and always been in and around the ocean. I kind of had a fairly normal childhood, just spent ages and ages at the beach. Was lucky enough that my parents kind of got me into surfing and surf comps real early, so that kind of shaped who I was as a person. And ever since, like I suppose when I started getting a bit older, all of my jobs and everything kind of just pushed me in the direction of surfing. Like even first job was a surf coach, and obviously doing a lot of surf comps. And then when I went to uni, I did actually it's not a degree, diploma, which is surfing studies. So that's something a lot of people don't think. That's the reaction I get from everybody.
That's unreal.
We were just talking about it just before the show. Like, this son of a bitch here turned his passion into his career. It's the dream for a lot of people, but he's out there doing it.
Yeah, that's it. That's kind of where I was going in my life. Everything was going down surfing, and was at a point where I was managing a surf shop, DP Surfboards, up in Thirroul.
Shout outs.
Yeah. And was just kind of enjoying life. I decided that I wanted to do a few more comps and have a go at maybe qualifying for the tour, which is a lengthy process. I just wanted to start it and know that I could do it. So I'd started training, and I was in a pretty good space mentally and physically. I'd started training with Tommy Baker as well. Another shout out. And the day that kind of changed my whole life was the 30th of March, 2016. It was actually, the day started at 2:30 a.m. I got a call from my boss saying the shop had been broken into. So I spent basically my whole day just dealing with broken glass, dealing with police, and it was a pretty bad day. Like in anyone's books, it was pretty shitty. So I had finished that day at work and decided that I was going to go home and just have a surf and kind of wash the whole day off, and called my friend Joel to basically come for a surf, come hang out. And the thing about Joel is he's always filmed me, but he's a really good friend of mine. So I was like, just come for a surf. And he's renowned at either being really late or just not showing up at all. So I was just like, I'll at least that's someone to surf with if he shows up. If not, then I'll just be cruising out there by myself, which is fine. But I'd been surfing for about half an hour. Joel actually came down to the beach, which was pretty incredible. I was like, yes, he's actually come.
Here he is pulling through.
That's it, yeah, which I thought was a bit odd. But he'd come out, and we'd been surfing together for about 20 minutes when I got attacked by a shark. And that moment is, I'm sure we'll talk about it heaps throughout the podcast. It's a defining moment for my life, but it's one where it really changed the direction that I was going on. Yeah. Somewhere from, I'd been going in all this direction of having surfing as, the main focal point of my life. And just when something big like that happens, it changes you a lot. So that was the immediate kind of thought that I had was, wow, this is huge. Obviously there's a whole lot of other things going on at the time, but lucky enough that Joel was there. He was able to pull me into the beach. He was able to, tourniquet my leg and prevent me losing a lot of blood. And the other lucky thing was his girlfriend, now fiance Aggie, was there as well. And she's a nurse up at Wollongong Hospital. So
Yeah.
having someone that was there that knew what they were doing as well, and there was another nurse on the beach, made me super lucky. Just
lucky.
that set of circumstances was pretty incredible.
It's like the universe wasn't ready to, for you to go that
Yeah.
day.
No,
They line things up for you.
Yeah, definitely not. I had a weird moment. It's funny you mentioned. I had a weird moment on the beach where Joel had pulled me up on the sand, and he'd run to like go get Aggie. So I was just laying there by myself and had a strange kind of couple of seconds to reflect. And this is one of the deepest sort of things that I've ever felt. And I was sitting there by myself. I hadn't really looked at what my leg was like or anything like that, but I was just thinking to myself, like obviously knowing it's serious, and I was thinking, I wonder if this is what it feels like to die.
Oh, wow.
And it was a really profound feeling, because the immediate next thought was, no, it doesn't feel right. And like you said, it mightn't have been my time. It was weird. It just didn't feel like it was the time.
Yeah.
And I don't know what makes you feel that in that point in time or not, but it was probably a good thing, because if I'd thought otherwise, then there's a good chance that,
Well, yeah, mind over matter.
Exactly, yeah. And that's kind of where that all started for me. It was that moment right there, in my whole recovery and the mindset that I had. But yeah, that was a pretty profound moment for me. So yeah, when Joel and Aggie and the other nurse got back to me, they were able to apply a bunch of tourniquets. I got airlifted from the beach in a helicopter and taken to St George Hospital, where I had 3 operations in 5 days.
Wow.
The first 2 operations were just to clean the sand out of it and figure out how much of my leg was left. So they determined that I lost about 3/4 of my quad, which is a sizable chunk considering your quad's the biggest muscle in your body. And then, they decided for the 3rd operation, it was an 8-hour operation. It was on my birthday, actually, where they took the lat muscle from my back. They took the entire left lat and transplanted that into my leg, because it was basically just bone that was exposed there.
Gosh.
So they said, we'll put the muscle in there, connect a blood supply so it, has life, and we'll connect a nerve. And if that nerve ends up working out, then you'll have a bit of use of it, and you might be able to grow, a little bit of muscle back and get some strength and be able to, walk again, which is good.
Yeah.
Like if that's kind of best case scenario, so we'll do that, because the other option was to just amputate the leg. And I mean, that's a quicker recovery time, because it's prosthetic and away you go.
Different sort of life change there.
That's
though.
it, yeah. So they were the 2 options, and Mum, being Mum, she was like, we're doing, we're going, something that's harder, but it's going to be better. And I was lucky that Mum's actually looking out for me then, because I know another guy who's been bitten by a shark who was just in hospital by himself, and at that time where he had the option to operate or to amputate, he was just high on painkillers and was like, just take it off.
Yeah.
I want to be Robocop. It'd be
Yeah,
sick.
it's the path of least resistance as well.
And it's not something he regrets, but it's funny how you just get those choices. Like I'd be a very different person now, I believe, if I was, an amputee rather than, still having my leg. I think the thing that got me was imagining trying to throw away like half of a good leg, because from the knee down I was fine, 100%. It's just that I was missing a chunk of my quad.
It's just the really important half at the
Yeah,
start.
yeah.
So you've been told, like, this is life-changing injury. Brett Connellan, how old were you?
I was 22 when it happened, and then 23 when I had the operation.
Yeah.
So.
So 23 years old, like whole life ahead of you. Your whole life has been built around surfing. And now they're saying we might get you to walk again. So that's in other words, that's them saying you're probably not going to surf again in some respects.
Yeah.
Like how does that affect you when you're just like, here's your life's passion just potentially gone? I mean, was that a motivator for you to go, no, I'm going to get back on that fucking board?
Yeah, I think like that was an underlying motivator. It's not something I really thought about too much for a while. I was really focused just on trying to get better, and like the thing that I hated most about the whole time of being in hospital was being on painkillers.
Yeah.
So my whole thing was I just want to get off the painkillers and be able to actually talk to people and be present in a conversation, because the most incredible thing that happened to me that I was really fortunate for was just the amount of support I got. So rather than focusing on what I could do, because all I could do at the time was just lay there. I wasn't thinking about what I could do in 5 weeks, 5 months time. I was just thinking the thing I can do at the moment is thank everybody for reaching out and saying want to see you get better, and just there's just so much of that it kind of took my mind off what was actually happening.
Yeah.
But I definitely think that was an underlying motivator going into my recovery, which kind of came later, because something I've done the whole way along has just been set goals and kind of reassess yourself every now and then. And
so checkpoints.
Yeah, that's it. And I think I'd reach one of those points where I was going to set some new goals, and that was one of the things that popped up is, what do you use to set your goals? And obviously expectations, one of the things that you can use, and the only expectation they'd kind of given me was, if we're going to be lucky if we can walk unassisted, because I'd had a few appointments with orthotists, which they're the people that can give you like walking aids and work out braces, and they were trying to like fit me for ones that would mechanically straighten my leg out, because that's the function of your quad. So they'd kind of prepared for the worst. I think that's something that a lot of people will tell you, is the doctors will always give you the worst case scenario, because they don't want to build you up to you're going to surf again, you're going to be awesome, which would be beneficial for somebody mentally, but if they don't reach that, then I think it can be detrimental. So I also knew at that time that they're just doing what they have to do, which is not build you up too much and let you down.
Makes them look good too, because it's like, you'll never walk again. And
surprise!
This happens.
Well
it's like
done.
You're a miracle worker, doc.
Yeah, definitely. Well, I go back for like yearly checkups with my plastic surgeon that did the operation, and he's always like, okay, so like, what have you been up to this year? Like, are you surfing? Are you like, what have you been doing? Like, just have like a catch up with him. Like, he just like looks at it, goes, yeah, it looks the same as last time I saw it. But what are you doing now?
Because I mean, that is the most important, that you're back surfing.
Yes.
He's back on the board. He's done it.
It's incredible. Like, just going back, it seems like, correct me if I'm wrong, you've got a lot of memory from what happened. Like, obviously a shark comes, bites your leg, and then Joel comes to your rescue. Is that correct?
Yes.
What's your memory of it all? Like, how do you recall? Because adrenaline will be going through your body, obviously.
Yeah.
But that is a massive thing to either remember or to try and put back together.
Well, I think I'm lucky that I can remember. Like, my memory of it is like so detailed that I can remember what it felt like to put my hands out on top of the shark's nose and like what its eyes looked like, and it's all really vivid, which I think is a good thing, because it makes it easy to talk about.
Because in a lot of people's cases, like, I blacked out.
I have no idea.
There, you should be talking to them.
Well, you get that rush of adrenaline initially, but that for me at the time just slowed everything down. Like, I know it was happening quickly, but it slowed down so much that I could take in those minute details that you wouldn't usually pick up. And I suppose because it's such a big moment in your life, like it's something where you almost need to really take everything in. But my memory of it's so clear, and like up to the point I can remember everything up until I got in the helicopter, which is when they just pumped me full of ketamine and I started wigging out. So
gone.
It's so gone. Fully.
Yeah, like you said, you had the whole, not only the local community, but pretty much the entire Australian surfing community, like, rally around you. I believe, was it Stab Mag or someone? I saw a post that said, just FYI, that kid who got bitten by a shark, proper shreds. There's an article.
It's so funny because, like, you spend, like, as a surfer, you spend, like, your whole, like, young years trying to get recognised. And, like, the best way to do that is obviously through surfing good and doing comps, but this is like how I've gotten the most recognition. It's kind of cool that people do get to see you surf, and but the thing that was underlying was, like, they were kind of saying it was a bit of a shame. Like, they were saying obviously, like, it's a bad thing to happen, and the thing was like, he ripped, like, in past tense.
When it's like I still do.
Well, it's that I saw those comments at a time where I wasn't sure if I could surf again or not.
Right.
And it's kind of, again, it's a bit of a motivator, like what we were talking about with the doctors is, you can either look at something like that and go, I did used to rip, or you can look at it and be like, I want to get back to that point, or I want to get better than what I was before. Because it's like we were talking about with expectations, it doesn't matter what your expectation is. You've just got to set something and try to achieve it. Whether that be, something small and you can just increase it, day by day, or that's a bigger, broader goal, which is kind of the way that I've done it. When I got home from hospital and saw the physio for the first time, we went and laid out 3 goals that we wanted to do. And Scotty was saying, first one, you're going to have to drive because your mum can't take you anywhere all the time.
Yeah, it makes dating weird.
Yeah, that's it. Second one was we got to get you back to work so you can get some sort of normality into life. And the third one was obviously always going to be surfing. So it took me, like, being able to drive again was just a matter of being able to bend my knee again. So that was one where it was only going to take, a month or 2. Getting back to work was basically as soon as I was mobile I could do. So that's, whenever I was ready. And then the surfing one was the one, it's a broad goal, which
that's the Everest.
Yeah, that's it. And I think the good thing is having these achievable goals that you reach along the way that make you feel good about getting to that bigger goal.
Yeah.
Which I found was really important.
Yeah, we were talking last week about goal setting, and those small goals are like, you just need to get a couple of little wins up so that you've got that kind of winning mentality in you. Yeah. Like, all right, I can go for these bigger things.
Get the momentum moving forward, and then big things start to tick over.
Yeah, absolutely.
So with your big goal of getting back on the board, obviously that's like the physical limits, but there had to be a mental side to it too, like going back in the water. Like the last time you were in the water is when the biggest event of your life happened, and you lost a part of your body, and spent months, I assume, or years. How long did it take to get back on the board?
From the day that I got bitten to getting back in the water was 5 months.
5 months.
Yeah.
I feel like that's a short amount of time considering.
I followed your journey. It felt like way longer than that.
Well, it felt like a long time for me because
I imagine.
Like when that's the only thing you're working on, that's what you focused on day in, day out, and time. Like it's weird how you perceive time when like all your energy is going into this one goal. Like I was at the physio 4 or 5 times a week. And then just trying to move around as much as possible, and it was all with the purpose of trying to get some mobility back and just being able to do basic stuff, and then obviously adding a bit of strength and all that stuff leads to being able to surf again. And that's the physical side. I got told from when I was in hospital, everyone was like, other than the doctors saying you might not walk again, but all the nurses were saying you are young, you've got the best chance of recovering. Which I think is not entirely true, because I know people that I was in hospital with that were older that obviously went on to recover. But I think just having that as a motivator, it's almost like a bit of a placebo effect, just people telling you that you're in the best opportunity to recover.
Yeah, I'm built to win this.
Yeah,
there is a chance.
There's no one in a better spot than me to recover from something like this. And I mean, that was the physical side of things. Like you said, that's kind of easy when you have all these things going for you, which is people saying that they know you can do it almost. But the mental side of things is weird. It's weird because you don't get told what to do. Like with recovering physically, you've got physios and trainers and everybody.
Exercise.
They know what you've got to do to get back there, but nobody really knows what to do to get back mentally.
Yeah.
And I think that's something that goes across not only for recovering from an injury, but just mental health in general, right?
Yeah, totally.
Because it's something that people often aren't really used to talking about. And especially in my situation where it's so foreign. And that's part of the reason why a lot of people like hearing my story and like talking to me about it, is because it's a unique story. And I use that as a good vehicle to be able to talk about it, because people always have questions about it. Or they're too afraid to ask the wrong questions, which I don't think there are any wrong questions.
I said that to you at the start, like, is there anything you don't want to talk about, just in case? Because it's a traumatic thing. Like, people don't survive, like, all the time. Like,
definitely.
there's a lot of unfortunate situations where it doesn't go the way it went for you.
Yeah.
So, and people have genuine fears about even going in the water without having known someone that has run in with a shark.
Yeah.
This brings us to a pretty funny story, and it involves you.
Oh, cool.
So we have a friend who was living over in Europe at the time, and he was talking to a friend who lives over there, local. He's like, you got to come to Australia. He's like, I'm scared of sharks. And our mate leans in, he's like, look, I'm just going to fill you on a little secret. Like, the whole shark thing is just something we tell tourists to scare them, like drop theirs. No joke, 2 days later, you got bitten by a shark. Yeah. So he had to sit down with his friend and go like, look, it does happen, all right? I've got to level with you.
I was wrong.
It's rare, but it happens.
Wow, that's so funny. Well, that's it though. It's rare. Like, And I think this is one thing that plays into the mental side of thing and getting back to everything is because it's so rare. You've got two ways of looking at it. You can look at it like you were unlucky. Like it's 1 in 3.6 something million is your odds of being attacked by a shark, which, that's only a handful of people in Australia.
Yeah.
So that's one way you can look at it, say that was so unlucky and why did it happen to me? Or the way that I looked at it was I can use this as an opportunity to get better. Like obviously it's unlucky, but I mean, you've got more of a chance of me getting a crash on the way over here right now.
Yeah,
like,
exactly.
That's the way I look at things. And if something so unlucky happened to you, then you should use that to build yourself and get better.
Yeah, it's a weird lottery of sorts that you've won. Like the things that you've done post attack, like, you've inspired a lot of people.
Yeah.
It's amazing.
Yeah. Well, and that's the main, I think that's my main story is that for me, it could have been the worst day of my life, but I would say it's the best day of my life.
That's unreal. Like, it would be so easy for someone in your situation to go, fuck it. Like, it's too hard. I don't want to go to physio. I don't want to go do these exercises. I'm never going back in the water.
Yeah.
But you've turned, like you said, something that is a massive negative and a life-changing experience into a huge positive.
Yeah.
Like, it's unreal. Like, your story alone is incredible.
Yeah.
Like we're coming from rugby league backgrounds. You see the amount of people that like blow their knee out when they're like 22, and by 30 they're round.
Yeah.
Hobbling around. Just because they're like, nah, it was too hard. Couldn't be bothered getting back into it.
Yeah.
Like, this is the guy. He gets back into it. He remembers why.
Shark can't stop him.
Yeah.
That's it.
Like, and you've obviously gone with that feeling like, you went 5 months not in the water. That probably never happened in your entire life, I'm assuming. No, yeah.
Not even close.
Like, you're using that motivation, like, I want that feeling back.
Yeah.
What is it, when you're about to quit, remember why you started.
Yeah.
Another t-shirt we can make.
Yeah.
If it hasn't already been made. So I guess one thing I want to ask, you're obviously a very positive dude. The network around you, how much did that impact your recovery?
That was huge for me. Like I was saying with having that support when I was actually in hospital, I think the most emotional I've been in probably my whole life was the first time I got my phone back, which was I think the second day I was in hospital. In this day and age, it's a weird thing to be disconnected from your phone for 2 days.
Yeah.
So I expected to like get my phone, I had like a couple messages, but because I was on so many painkillers at the time, I kind of didn't realize the amount of people that were actually in hospital coming and visiting me.
Oh wow.
And that was just because I wasn't really with it. But when and especially people there was some people I would have expected to be there, like, my best friends and my housemate and my family. But there was some people there that I've, been friends with since I was, in primary school that were showing up that I hadn't seen in a long time, and old family friends that had not only come to support me, but help my family out, because it's a traumatic thing for my family to go through.
Yeah, it wasn't just the biggest change in your life that day. It was everyone. It's, the ripple effects.
Yeah, that's it. And I've always said, like, I would way rather, if it was to happen again, do it again in my shoes than as a family member. Like, I can't imagine what it would be like to receive a call saying that, your son or your brother or your, like, has been bitten by a shark and, they're almost dead. Like, that must be the hardest thing to do. And I think that was where I was grateful that the support was not only there for me, but for my family. But yeah, when I got my phone for the first time, and it was not hundreds of messages, it was thousands of messages.
Wow.
Like, I had never felt that. Like, as somebody who's kind of gone through life, I've got a pretty close circle of friends, and I know like a few people through work and just through being in Kiama. It's a small town, but you don't realize how many people you come into contact with over the years that you could have an impact on, or even just create a memory with.
Yeah.
And all those people are ones that can get you through tough times like this, because you don't know when you're going to come across something like this. And that's the one thing I tell a lot of people is, you don't have to be like me. You don't have to almost die to realize that people care about you.
That's good. That is good.
Yeah, it's one thing I tell people. Like, it sucks that the reason you can feel loved is because something bad happens, but it's just the way it is.
Yeah.
And it's something I try and encourage a lot of people to do now, is to, just every time I leave mum and dad's house, just make sure I tell them I love them and that,
I do that with my parents as well.
Stuff, yeah, because you never know when everything could change. But not only that, you never know how that could affect someone else's day. Like if they're having an average day, that might be all they need to hear for them to be like, okay, it's not as bad as what I thought. There's people there that care about me, and it can just lift them up as well.
Yeah, I've kind of adopted that mentality as well. Like what I've gone through in my life is nothing compared to what you went through 3 years ago. But you know, it is that thing where people rally around you and you do feel valued and you really want to give that value back. And it's just small things like, you know, I manage people at work. Some days you're like, guys, you did a top effort today, you know, great job, you know, and making sure you tell the people that you love that you do love them. Yeah. You know, it's great. It is, and it makes you feel good as well.
Yeah. Well, that's the other thing. Like it can help pick you up as well. 'Cause if you're being positive to other people, that has an effect on you as well. Just by, you know, if you're smiling, then you're happy. Like, like whether you're doing that just to help someone else out, but if it puts a smile on your face, I believe that just has an effect on you, whether you mean it to or not. But
there's studies that prove that, like, you know, just acting happy will eventually just kind of catch on.
It's infectious.
Same with like sitting or standing with proud stances, shoulders back, you know, chest out.
Yeah.
Try it, you know, you're slouching.
I know, look at me right now. It's this chair. I need to get a better microphone.
But in the interim as well, like while you're, you know, away from the water, you know, you got really good at golf too. And now, so now you're a good surfer and a good golfer.
I wouldn't say I'm a good golfer, but it kept me occupied when I couldn't surf, which was good.
Yeah.
I got into golf just because when I got home from hospital, when it kind of started when I was in hospital, like as soon as I could walk, I was just walking as much as possible.
Yeah.
Like they would say, they'd get me up in the morning and then I'd have breakfast and they'd be like, okay, you can go for a walk, just stretch your legs. And I'd spend all day, like pretty much until lunchtime, just walking around the ward. And then I'd have lunch. And then I'd go to like the physio session or whatever. And then I'd just keep walking until they were like, okay, it's time for you to sit down or go to bed. And I just knew it was so important to keep moving. Like that was the only thing I could physically do at the time that was actually going to improve where I was at physically.
Did that feel pretty empowering when you like went for those walks? Because, you know, like you said, there was that moment where you're like, man, there's probably a moment I wasn't going to be able to do this ever again.
Yeah,
like,
definitely. Well, it started basically, I think I realized when I was in hospital for a while, I wasted away a lot and had like even real bad atrophy in my arms where I couldn't open like yogurt lids. Yeah. And I had to get other people to do stuff for me. And I think there was that moment where I was like, oh my God, I've got to actually do something about this. Like whether it's, I just made sure I did something every day that made me feel like I was working towards getting better, which for a lot of the time was just walking because of what the doctors were saying is, you know, if you're not going to walk again, then as soon as you can start, that's all you're going to do.
Yeah.
Like I catch myself sometimes, like I take my dog for a walk every morning at like
Kendrick.
Yeah, take Kendrick for a walk.
Our dogs follow each other on Instagram.
Yeah.
That's cute. I like that. I need to get a dog.
Yeah. We go for a walk every morning at like 5 a.m. on the beach because no one else around. And I catch myself sometimes just like kind of smiling that I can still do that. And that's like now, this is like 3.5 years later.
Yeah.
So I was walking around the ward basically with a big smile on my face the whole time, just being like, I can't believe I can
check
do this
me
again.
out.
Yeah.
That's awesome.
Yeah, which is awesome. Like it's sick. Such a good feeling.
So I mean, it seems like you've bounced back, you know, amazingly from this, you know, event. Is there any challenges you face from it heading forward? Like, is there any challenges you still have?
I catch myself sometimes being a bit negative on where I am.
Yeah.
That I think is the biggest challenge, and a lot of it comes from like my surfing. Like with, you know, just general life, I'm really happy, and I think the main thing that happened that really helped me there was spending that 5 months out of the water. I realized that there's so many other things I could do that make me happy. It's not just surfing.
Yeah.
Like I was, you know, walking, playing golf, you know, just hanging out with friends or.
Got the dog too.
Yeah, I got the dog. Like there's so many other things I found that I really enjoyed doing as well, which I didn't know about before because I was so focused on surfing.
Yeah.
And now, like when I surf, obviously there's times where I mean, like my surfing, it's a weird thing. I wouldn't say I surf worse than what I did before. I surf differently, but there's some things I would do before that I can't do now, and there's things I can do now that I couldn't do before as well.
Yeah.
Like but if I do one of the things that I could do before, like trying airs or whatever, which I try and stay away from now because I just hurt myself too much.
Smart.
Yeah. And if I find myself like not doing them as well as what I thought, it's easy to be like, oh, I just can't do them as good as before. Like I think about that and I'm like, but there's always time to improve. Like I'm still improving, which is good.
Yeah. And what, you're like 25, 26?
26, yeah.
Yeah, you got time.
Yeah, that's what I figured.
Two people in their 30s now.
Yeah. And I don't know, I think that's the main thing that I find a challenge, but I think that's a good thing that I kind of get a bit frustrated because it still means I care about surfing.
You've still got the drive.
That's it.
And like, there's no reason that you can't relearn those things. Hey?
Yeah, absolutely. Like
so it's just effort, time, and practice. All the hard parts.
Yeah. Well, from the first surf I had back in like that first surf in 5 months, I was just riding a longboard and I was just standing up and going across. It was the best surf I've ever had. Yeah. But looking at that and then kind of how I progressed and getting to where I am now, like a lot of people ask me like, are you at 100% or whatever? And I'm like, it's a weird thing to say, like put a percentage on it. Because like I said, there's some things that I can do and some things that I can't.
It'd be a different scale. The percentages aren't the same as they were before.
It's like a report card. It's not just an overall score.
Yeah, that's it. So I find that a bit weird, but I think other setbacks and stuff like that I struggle with, everything, I don't know, anything I set out to like work on, I really make sure that I put 100% into now. And I think just going through that whole recovery really taught me the value of that. So there's not really too many things I get stuck on because I know to do them properly or as best as I can.
Yeah.
And that's the way I feel about a lot of things. If I'm going out there and say I wanted to learn how to, I don't know, knit or something.
Like, yeah, that'd be cool.
Yeah.
Like, I mean, there's a lot of knitting.
Yeah, that's I was just, I don't think I could say. All right. Make comfy couches. Like,
upholster.
Yeah. If I wanted to learn how to upholster and I was shit at it, but I'd done everything I could do to like be my best at it, then like I'm gonna sit on that couch and be like, this is the best couch I can make. Like that's kind of the way I look at a lot of things now. So I find it easier to come to terms with what you're doing, whether it's good or bad. The bad thing is when you start comparing yourself to, you know, the upholsterer I used to be back in the 70s or not only that, but like the other people that are really good at it.
Competition, everyone else, but they've got different stories. You can't, everyone gets in that. Same with like social media. You compare yourself to everyone else's life, but it's not always the way it is. And everyone's on a different track. Like you're not living the same life as them. So it's so hard.
I'm not as funny in real life. The other one is, this is just a interesting bit of trivia. So, you know, you have the community, the surfing community. You also had one of Australia's biggest hardcore bands, Parkway Drive, get behind you. So I'm spewing. I live in Sydney now, so I've got a Surfers for Bretto shirt with Brett as a Simpsons character throwing a shutter, I believe.
That. Yeah. That's sick.
Yeah. And these shirts were on sale at their concert at Waves, I believe.
They had them at a few. Yeah, they had it in Wollongong. I had breakfast with them like in Wollongong that morning, and they were like, "Yeah, we've got this thing for you," and then showed me the shirt, and I was like, "Whoa!"
Yeah. So you know, he's immortalised.
Oh yeah,
as a Simpson, and as you know, he's part of Australian music royalty now as well. Like, how did that come about?
There's a few of my mates who are massive Parkway fans as well. They just reached out and just said, like, just told them what was up, and just said if there's any way you can help, then like if it's just like a shout out on Instagram, then we'd be stoked. And I think they did the shout out on Instagram, and then they got back in touch and said, we're actually coming down to Wollongong. We'd love to have breakfast with you. And then like I hadn't been an enormous Parkway fan until then. Like, and that's
they're not listening.
Yeah. Well, it's a weird thing. Like it's like everyone's music's a weird way to look at things because everyone's got their preferences. But it just made me realize that those guys, they're all surfers. They're all just like really good, genuine dudes.
They're Byron boys, aren't they?
Yeah, they're all from Byron. They're not who I expected. Like because I wasn't like massively into their music. I didn't really know what they were about. And once I got to meet them, they're just like regular dudes that like they all surf, they all like played golf. So had like an awesome chat with them, and then they were like, we're going to do these shirts and we're happy to donate like a guitar and like a few other things to fundraiser. And it was cool. It was funny like when I see people wearing that shirt around from time to time. Yeah. It's like it's a bit of a bizarre thing, but
Mine's so faded. I wore it a lot. It was my first long sleeve shirt. It was when I was starting to come back into trend. Yeah,
Cool
I gave it
guy.
a good workout. Yeah.
Yeah.
So now it's pretty much vintage.
Yeah.
That's
Yeah.
how faded it is.
Pretty worth more now.
Could be.
On a side note, how cool is it when a call to action comes good?
Yeah.
And you put the word out to get some help. Like that's literally how we started as a Movember campaign. We put the word out to try and get people to join us, to join the fight for men's health, so to speak.
Yeah.
And 8 years or 7 years on, we've raised nearly $500,000.
Yeah.
But like all it takes is that message. Send a message, reach out, and you never know what could happen. You've got a t-shirt.
Yeah.
It's quality.
Yeah. Well, I've still got some left, so I'll have to give you guys. I'll give you a new one.
Yeah, we're actually
Whoa.
we've got
Yeah.
gifts sorted out. I will be dropping by. I know where you live now because I picked up my shirt from your house.
That's right. Yeah. Yeah. No, I totally agree. Like that's a weird thing that it just takes a bit of motivation, and like I'm sure you've seen it. Like once the ball gets rolling, it's pretty. And when you got someone like Mark who's
I
good
know.
on the ground,
He's
and
handy.
good on social media, can pump
Caption
it a bit.
king.
Yeah.
That's it. You like when those things start gaining traction, it's pretty incredible. Like the reach that you have.
Yeah.
And it's something that you don't realize until you actually do it. It just takes you to actually just jump in and figure it out, because if it doesn't work out or
You
whatever,
lose
like,
nothing,
you don't
really.
lose anything. Yeah.
That's sort of what we're aiming for with this podcast, is to sort of grow our circle,
Yeah.
get cool people like yourself on to tell their story, and hopefully if one person has a listen and feels good about it,
Yeah.
like we've done our job.
Yeah,
Yeah.
absolutely. That's the way I look at. Like I think a lot of people say to me, they're like, you can inspire so many people. I'm like, I don't care about inspiring as many people as possible.
Yeah.
It's more about like the kind of quality you give people.
Yeah, definitely.
I'd much rather be able to really just help one person. Whether it's that one person get their life back on track or just give them a nudge in the right direction. It's not something I'm saying I have the power to do just by me being me, but it's something everybody can do.
Yeah, definitely. Like Mark and I spoke in Mark's podcast. I have no real tie to Movember, like other than I like growing facial hair.
Yeah.
Like I've never
He's
had.
good at it.
Yeah, better than me.
I've never had any issues with my mental health or prostate or testicular cancer, but the feeling that I got when we started, and people were reaching out like, oh, my dad had issues with prostate cancer, or I've had some hard times with my mental health.
Yeah.
I'm like, what? Like, where these people are talking to us because they're getting value from what we're doing.
Yeah.
And all I'm doing is growing a moustache. Like, it's, how good is
I
that?
know,
Yeah.
People run marathons and stuff. Like,
I know.
they
Push
do
their
so
body.
push their body to the limits, and we just sit around making dumb videos.
Yeah.
Growing
Talking now.
moustaches,
Yeah.
calling ourselves brave.
Yeah.
I think that's like a good point though, because that proves that anybody can do it, and in any sort of way. Like you don't have to be able to run an ultra marathon to raise awareness for something. You can do
You can
whatever.
just talk about it, yeah.
Yeah, you can just talk about it. Like it's just interesting. Like once you realize you can just do what you like doing or what you're good at to help other people, and once you know that feeling of what it's like to empower someone and kind of get them on the right track, then
Oh, it's a drug.
yeah, it
Yeah.
totally is. Like it's one thing that I realized, because I've done a couple of talks where people have been like, can you come talk to like a school or a group of people, and like I love doing them because it's the opportunity to be able to help people.
Yeah.
It's not something that everybody gets. Like everybody would have like something valuable to add to somebody else's life, and I think that's something that anybody could do. But for me, I'm just lucky that this happened to me, where it's put me in a position where I think the main thing is just get a bit of meaning out of my life.
That's so good. It's such a good feeling.
Yeah.
And like realistically, you get nothing in return. You put out, like you
Yeah.
put time into doing things, like you go out of your way to talk at a school or whatever. But the
You
feeling,
come here, you know.
yeah, come here, hang out with us for a couple of hours. But like the feeling that you get back is like there's no value.
No, that's it. You can't. So a lot of people, they ask me like, you're getting paid to do all these talks, and I'm like, if someone wants to pay me, that's great, but I'm not going to go out there and chase money for it.
That's
Like,
so cool.
it's
Yeah.
not something you need to. I understand when people like it's your time, and
Yeah.
time is time, but it depends how you value it. I can value my time as being so useful if I can help somebody.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Like that's not putting a value on your time, because I think that is invaluable. Like being able to help somebody, just due to the fact that not everybody can do it.
Yeah. Well, Brett, you are, the epitome of life giving you lemons and turning it into lemonade.
Yeah. I like lemon tart better though.
Ooh, lemon tart.
It's even better than lemonade.
Yeah.
No, it's just three, probably the heaviest questions of the podcast.
Okay.
Gotcha journalism.
Yeah.
But, Dane likes to finish up the show with his three. We like to call him Chambos.
You're giving
Chambos dozen.
Chambers dozen. Chambers dozen, which
It's like
is
a baker's
actually
dozen.
Three questions is not a dozen. So we finish every podcast with three questions. They just quick answers, nothing too deep. First one, what's your favourite colour?
Black.
Ooh, wow.
Yeah.
It's a new one. Second one, if you had 1 minute with 18-year-old you, what would you say?
I would probably say not to take life so seriously. When I was so focused on doing surfing and that, I would think I was a bit too serious. And that's why I got trapped in thinking that was all I had. Which is why, afterwards I could really expand and try so many new things, which I loved. So I think that would probably be my advice to 18-year-old me, is to just chill out a little bit and enjoy. Like when you're young, you've got so much time ahead of you.
With that one, I honestly, this morning I was thinking, when planning on asking you that question, I was going to see specifically if you'd go back and say, don't go for a surf that day. On the 30th of March, don't jump in the water. But the way you've explained and gone over everything, it sounds like it's just been life-changing for the best. Hard part, very, very hard part, obviously.
Yeah.
You've worked your ass off to get to where you are now, but you're glowing. Like, life is good for Brett.
It's definitely good. Yeah, I think... Yeah, like I said earlier, it was definitely a good thing. I wouldn't change anything about it. Like, I wouldn't tell myself not to go for a surf. Like, obviously it's bad. You try and avoid it. And I wouldn't want it to happen again, but it's just the way these things happen.
That's incredible.
Yeah.
I guess the more important thing is make sure you text Joel to come out that day.
Yeah, that's it. Yeah, without Joel, I've thanked him a couple of times.
Yeah, that's unreal.
Yeah.
Last question. What will we have to do to get you to join our Movember campaign this year?
Oh, I'm trying to grow Mo already.
Yeah,
The running start.
My problem is it's blonde, so
that's
you can't
all right.
see it. It's just invisible.
As long as it's there, that's all that matters.
Yeah, I mean,
like we were just talking about before, just have a crack.
Yeah, that's it. You've got me.
Is there anything else you wanted to share? Is there any that we didn't touch on that you want to?
Well, I suppose, Brett is, on a couple of podcasts now, so please give them a plug, and also the businesses you run, and who was the physio that got you to where you are as well?
I'll start with physio. Scott Mutton at Baymed in Kiama.
Shout outs.
Yeah,
sponsor.
Definitely. That's actually something that has, on a little bit of a side of shouting out my other podcast, it's kind of pointed me in a direction that I want to go with my life now, which is, I think Scott was great for me because not only did he help me recover, but he was great mentally and helped me like setting those goals and keeping on track. And I think that's something a lot of people miss when they're recovering from trauma or any other sort of injuries, or even just getting back from, just if they have a problem with their mental health, just having somebody that's there to help you and help you progress and set goals and become a better person. That's something that I'm kind of looking into using my time in improving. So Scott's definitely one that really helped me realize that. Pretty special person in my entire recovery.
Sounds like a good guest to have on the podcast one day.
Yeah, maybe.
Yeah. Other podcasts are The Highline, which is if you enjoy surfing, you can listen to that. Just me and a couple of mates talking absolute smoke about surfing, which is always fun. And then Happiness and Crap, which if you are into artists or any other creative types, then we kind of dig into people's brains and get to know what's going on and why I can't draw but other people can.
It is frustrating.
Cool. Yeah.
Very frustrating.
Well, like you've achieved what some people would perceive as the impossible. So pick up a pencil.
That's it. Yeah, exactly.
Put your mind to it. You'll be right.
That's it.
Yeah. Well, man, thanks so much for coming on the show. Dane.
Yeah, massive thank you for coming on, mate, and sharing your story. I appreciate it. I honestly didn't really. I had an idea of your story, but the way you hold yourself and the way you, share your story is really inspiring. So I really appreciate you coming on.
And I appreciate you making a verbal commitment to joining the Chamberlain Movember Challenge this
year.
Yeah, I'll sign something if you need me to.
Perfect.
Thanks heaps for having me, guys. Love being able to talk and share my story and help other people if I can. So hopefully this helps one person at least.
Awesome.
Cheers.
Thank you.
Thank you for listening to the podcast. If you enjoy it, please subscribe and share it with your friends. We'll be uploading weekly podcasts with a range of different guests. Follow us on Facebook and Instagram at the Chamberlain Movember Challenge.